We have Justin Haskins on with us. He is the editorial director and research fellow at the Heartland Institute. He's also a researcher of mine and co-author of a new book that is taking us a little longer than we expected because the more we dig into it, the more we find. And it is called The Great Reset. Justin, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Glenn. It's great to talk to you.
I asked Pat to come in along with Stu because they are more, we're in the weeds, and I like them to be here and ask the questions that the person who really doesn't understand what's going may be asking. You just went in and you opened a Merrill Lynch account yesterday, correct?
I did. I absolutely did, yes.
And you're going to talk to us about the scores that you found. Before we get into it, I want to tease here just a bit, and then I want to talk to you about it. I got a call from one of the big 5 banks in America, and they intimated that they wanted me to make a correction on the show when they left the message. When I got back to them, they didn't want a correction in the show. They said everything that we said, that was accurate, except that's not what they're doing. And we said, well, help us out. Where do we need to correct it? Well, no, it's not. We don't need a correction. It's not that anything was said that was wrong. It's just not what we're doing. And I want to go into that conversation with you in a little while. But first, take the boys through ESG.
Right. So the most important thing to understand about ESG standards, it's ESG, environment, social, and governance standards, is they are a metrics that a metric system that you build on top of existing ways that you evaluate companies. So instead of just looking at how much money a company makes, instead of looking at how good their products and services are and customer satisfaction and all of that, you add on top of it all of this social justice woke stuff. So how green are you? And, how many women do you have in management? And what's the pay gap between the highest paid person and the lowest paid person? All of these kinds of things. And then you provide a numerical score based on these things. It's usually a numerical score. Sometimes there are other ways of doing it, but you provide a score. And that allows you to evaluate companies that maybe don't make a whole lot of money, but they're really woke. And that means more to us than just being a company that makes money and people actually like. So that's what the ESG system is designed to do. It's designed to provide you with a way to see how, which companies are the good companies and which companies are the bad companies based on these social justice and environment metrics.
So, take me to who is making these judgment calls? What is the agency that is saying this is bad, this is good?
Right. So there are a whole bunch of different people out there. They're all pretty much part of the same cabal that are doing these different rating systems. The biggest one, the one that I think is going to become the prominent system, is being produced by a group in the World Economic Forum. These are the big Great Reset people. It's led, this group, the International Business Council, I believe is the name of it, is led by the CEO of Bank of America, Brian Moynihan. And they produced a report with the World Economic Forum back in September that created an elaborate ESG system that they think basically all of the major companies in the world should adopt. And it includes, I think, 20 core metrics and 30 expanded metrics. And to give you some sense of what is in this set of metrics, in the social metrics section, one of them is the percentage of employees per employee category by age group, gender, and other indicators of diversity. The ratio of the basic salary and remuneration for each employee category by significant locations of operation. Boy, you got to love how they write this stuff. For priority areas of equality, such as men to women, minor to major ethnic groups, and other relevant equality areas. So in other words, if you don't have the right ratio of Asians to Hispanics or whatever, then that means you get a lower score. And there's a whole bunch of these things. I mean, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of these metrics, and they can essentially be whatever the heck they want them to be. They can change them at any given time. And all of these
cover the union. Cover the union one.
Sure. One of the social metrics is the percentage of active workforce covered under collective bargaining agreements. So that's just another way of saying the percentage of your employees who are in a union, in effect. So if you don't have a lot of union employees proportional to the size of your business, then you're not going to get a high ESG score. And the whole reason that these companies are doing this, well, there's two reasons, I think. The first is they see that this is the way the world is moving, and they know that governments are going to start requiring these ESG scores. And there's been all sorts of regulatory movements over the past couple of years suggesting that that's going on, including very recently at the SEC. But the other thing is that there's tons and tons of money already behind it. The estimates range from $30 trillion all the way up to over $100 trillion, depending on the group you're looking at, of governments and investors who are saying, we are only going to invest in these kinds of companies. And so with all of that money floating around, if you're a business, why the heck would you try to compete with people to have the best product and service when you can just be woke and get all of this money flowing into your coffers that way? And that's what makes this so dangerous.
So recently we've heard all kinds of things about what Coke is doing to be woke, to be diverse. And now this seems to explain all that, right? This must be what is behind Coke's motivation to be requiring the race quotas in their leadership and all of those kinds of things?
That's exactly right. Yeah, Coke actually, in its annual report, talks about its ESG scores. Coke has a whole system of ESG scores and ESG auditing. They actually have people working at Coke that make sure that they're following these ESG scores so that they get a really good score by these different rating agencies.
And how exactly does the ESG score help them? I mean, who is looking at these scores, and is it who is like behind this then? Why do they care about their ESG score?
Right. Well, it started, this whole idea, I think, started, and there's some dispute as to when this began, but I think it started out of the United Nations sometime between 2000 and 2010, this idea. And the idea was, how do we get businesses to go along with our agenda if we can't get governments to impose our agenda? And the whole idea behind the ESG system is that they want to take the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations. That's like Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, all that stuff. And they want to figure out a way to get that into the bloodstream of the corporate universe. And the way that they figured that they could do this is by getting investors and central banks and the IMF and World Bank and United Nations and all these people to get behind this and say, we're only going to support you, big corporation, if you agree to follow through with these ESG standards and to adopt these things and to live by it. And if you do, then essentially we're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure the money keeps flowing in your direction. And that's exactly what's happened. And they've actually been building this whole ESG infrastructure behind the scenes. No one's noticed it really over the past 10 years or so, to the point where all of the major corporations that you can think of, for the most part, already have this system in place. It's already there. So we just didn't notice it.
Before I go to a break, let me just see if all of these fit into this category. Let me give you some stories that have broken in the last couple of days. GoFundMe yanks page run by Virginia parents fighting woke curriculum. So GoFundMe saw this fundraiser for these parents, and they're like, we need your help to fight this critical race theory in our schools. GoFundMe yanked it. Is that just their opinion, or is it possible that this is all about ESGs?
I think that virtually every decision that big corporations are making today is related to ESGs, including that example that you just gave. I think they're all related to ESG standards.
Home Depot co-sponsored a website citing the Southern Poverty Law Center and the 1619 Project. So they're helping fund the poison of the 1619 Project. Woke or ESG?
Without question, ESG.
Let me give you this one. President Biden says the private sector should lead on vaccine passports.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge topic amongst all of the Great Reset people who are deeply involved in this. They absolutely have been. They've been pushing for that since the beginning of the pandemic.
So this is a world organization, or the World Economic Forum, that has wanted these kinds of things, that Biden is saying, to libertarians' delight, the government shouldn't do this. But libertarians don't understand this is part of a much bigger government that is coming.
Yes, that's exactly right. And Joe Biden has been involved with these people for many, many years. He's a big supporter of this entire system that's called stakeholder capitalism, is another way that they reference this. The head of the World Economic Forum, the most visible, vocal supporter of the Great Reset internationally, a guy named Klaus Schwab. When Joe Biden created the Biden Institute, which I know you all are very familiar with, at the University of Delaware, that he brought in Klaus Schwab because he wanted to figure out how he could make that the World Economic Forum of the United States. And there's all sorts of articles about that online that you can find. So Joe Biden, John Kerry openly says that he supports the Great Reset, that Joe Biden supports the Great Reset. John Kerry has made comments to that effect within the past few months. And he's also said at a World Economic Forum meeting, this is John Kerry, said that under Joe Biden, the Great Reset, meaning all of this stuff with ESG standards and printing of money and all of this that goes into it, is going to happen, and that it's going to happen with greater intensity and faster than most people realize. And so this is everything we're seeing over the past few months was all in the works for a very long time, and it's not surprising at all.